Hi everyone, this is Jay Abraham, the founder of Mental Academy. Today we'll discuss the love journey. Today we'll do 10 signs of anxiety, fear that you gain from your trauma. You're still identifying your triggers, your signs, the things that really gets you all riled up and hostile. Sometimes when we go through a lot of horrific situations in the past, we don't tend to notify and understand our own signs, and because of that we tend to react or overreact or self-sabotage because we're not understanding where we are and where do we belong and how do we stand against some situations. And because of that we need to understand what our triggers are. So today we're just discussing what the signs of your anxiety, in order for you to understand what to do when situations arise that would trigger you and cause you to reactivate your trauma. So arousal is basically when you're feeling a very intense mode. This comes into your survival mode when you're feeling hostile and you're unable to really regulate or co-regulate your emotions, and having all emotional dysregulation, dysfunctional. And because of that you tend to stay in survival mode and you get fired up by the fight, flight or freeze reaction, and because of that you tend to react in that manner. So the human body has some very effective ways to deal with stress, de-stress and trauma, right? So a major component of our complex stress responses capabilities is the arousal response, right, which is more common referred to as the fight and flight response. A related interaction but separate response pattern is dissociation. So today we're going to discuss the 10 tips of understanding dissociation and understanding all these stressful anxiety signs and so on. So both of these responses, pattern, dissociation and arousal, work together to help us cope with everyday stresses and to survive extreme challenges or even traumatic experiences, right? So when exposed to extreme or prolonged stress or unpredictable and uncontrollable stress, something like poverty or community violence. So the prolonged stress is physical or sexual abuse and stuff. So these stress response systems can be sensitized. This means that they become overactive at a baseline and overly and inappropriate reactive, right? So with that, so what we're trying to say is that if you continue staying in a state of constant distress or constant prolonged and extreme uncontrollable stress, situations like these, they tend to really trigger you in so many ways, and they tend to impact the way you react to situations and the way you view it, knowing that you always have to be in constant vigilance situation where you start noticing everything and you start becoming restless. You can't stay in one location. You have to always tend to move around in order for you to survive. And that survival mentality is the only thing that is going to keep you having your next meal or being able to see tomorrow. When that situation happens, that brain of yours becomes sensitized. That's what it means. And then you become overactive at a baseline and overly reactive. So instead of you reacting normally to the situation that just usually you can brush it off, you tend to overreact and start to think of the worst case scenario in your brain. That's what usually happens. So understanding sensitized stress responses. A classic example of this is when a child dramatically overreacts to a caregiver's simple reaction or direction. A caregiver could of course be your parents, your foster parents, or guardians, anything like that. So simple request or reaction. A child with a sensitized arousal response will be prone to meltdowns and extreme reaction to simple transitions and disappointments of no or not now, and simply correction or redirection. So many adoptive and foster parents are very familiar with these reactions, and it tends to happen just again, as I was saying before, they tend to get triggered by these words, no and not now. Just that they feel one that they're not gonna get. They're not sure when the next meal will come. They're not sure how they're going to survive the next situation. The reason why I'm talking about it from a child perspective is that everything that you learn from a childhood, it really get adopted and brought up into your adulthood. So everything that we're going to discuss today, even though it's from a child perspective, and this can work for parents that are foster parents and parents that are working with traumatized kids, that's fine. But you're going to take this information, all this information that you have is going to also come to you and your adult. Think of every single reaction and meltdown and extreme reaction to simple transitions, all the stuff that we're discussing. Take that and put it into your adult form. You're gonna have exactly the same reaction, but sometimes it's different. It might look different, but it's the same reason and the same reactions. So the basic mechanism for arousal response are intended to help us cope with various challenges. That's just pretty much it, right? So including serious threats. So our arousal response is graded, starting with an initial flock response, which I'm going to discuss very soon, also known as social referencing. So basically, it's just a process of looking to others to help you figure out how to interpret and act on a potential challenge or threat. Think of how you might look at a co-worker when your supervisor introduces you to a new policy, or how a young child looks at a parent when he scrapes his knees on the playground. You're looking to see if your co-worker thinks the policy is stupid as you do, or if the boy looking for mom to gauge how to react to the painful. Fair enough? So it's just basically how they're going to react to the situation, and that's what a flock response is. Just make sure you understand that for now, and we're going to get into deeper and make it understand. So that's what a flock response is. So it's trying to figure out the process of looking, other people trying to figure out how to interpret. Similar thing with kids when they hungry, they don't understand how to interpret, so they cry. And then when you tell them to soothe them down, they understand, okay, this is the form of responding to something like this in the future. So minimize, or one of the questions, one of the things that either minimize or react. So as perceived threats increases, the body shifts both mental state and physiology to prepare to flee or flight. We got some figures here for you guys to check it out. So as the arousal response is activated, some areas in the brain will be deactivated and others activated. This is the arousal response, okay? In general, the more threatened or sensitized one become, the more the cortex, which is the smartest part of the brain, this part here, is deactivated. The simpler, more primitive system in our brain takes over, which is usually your temporal or your occipital lobes. It's just that they're the ones that tend to work on the reactions and responses to stressful situations, right? A sensitized threat response, so common in foster and adopted children, then can result in decreased rational thinking and planning capabilities, impaired capacity to anticipate the consequences of behavior, right? Increased distorted information processes, alteration in attention, and increase in impulses and related behavior problems. So what these situations here all mean is that once you become exposed to a situation that causes you distress, you start to have inability to really think clearly, to rationalize your situations, to have any capacity to understand what the consequences of your behavior will look like. You tend to react just for the sake of reacting. One, to either take the spotlight away from you, or two, just to make sure you survive the next day. So you'll do whatever it takes just to get the attention away from you, or to increase impulses so you can keep the behavior directed to the right directions. So these are the situations. Alright, so here's some of the tips for those working or living or working with children with sensitized arousal. Again, this will work for you as an adult. This is exactly what's going to happen to you. But just think about it in different settings and in different environment. but your reaction is almost going to be the same. So 1, anticipate transition and provide visual and auditory transitional aids. So at a baseline, some kids, or some of you guys adults, tend to be tuned up or very reactive. They tend to visualize everything. They tend to see everything as a threat, and because of that, it's this form of process is called labile, right? When asked to disengage from one task or move to another, or even asked to go from one relationship to another, or from one job to the other, or one friendship to the other, or even just going from one location to the other, you tend to react. You don't respond to it. You tend to just react. You wake up, wash up, get dressed, and to another. You guys often struggle. This is because to their body and brain, the series of changes is overwhelming the capacity of their poorly regulated stress response system to smoothly manage these inattention, motor activity, internal process, and thousands of other internal physiological changes that go with any change in our body posture, mental focus, and extreme stimuli. So think about how you feel at the end of a busy day when there are so many moving parts. Finishing up at work, getting through traffic, coming home, checking on your homework or activities, thinking about dinner, taking the kids to soccer, getting the kids to football, anything like that. It just tends to be very overwhelming. And while you're trying to make sure that everybody, your kid does their homework, not playing around in video games, and you get the calls from someone wanting to switch your phone service, your neighbors ringing you, and all of that tension, you tend to feel aggravated. It's just too much all at the same time. You become overly overwhelmed. So it's helpful to understand what we feel as simple transition are often this kind of overwhelming experience, not for only our children, but for ourselves as well. To make this easier, how do we make this easier? Put yourself in a category. So this is where you get to jot down some information if you like. So give a child more time to transition. Give yourself a little time to transition. Have a lot of visual aids if you need to, or schedule some stuff on your phone just to make sure that you have everything compartmentalized so you don't have to become overwhelmed. There you go, multiple visual and simple auditory reminders. So you know what, in 2 minutes I'm going to be transitioning from this to this. After you do this, you're going to be doing that. After you do this, you're going to be, just to kind of have you everything in advance written up for you so you can become aware. Third is integrate some form of regulatory activity, which is music, marching, singing, into common transition routines. So instead of you transitioning without something to calm you down, have a little bit of a transitional activity, so you can be able to move from one side to the other without feeling overwhelmed. So you can have a little song, or the alarm on your phone is for music that makes you feel comfortable, so you'll be able to transition from one spot to the other without overreacting, right? Create transition routine where the same cues and expectations are used again and again. So don't change situations, don't change the way you talk, act, or react to some situations. Otherwise, you're gonna get a different reaction. So use the same format all the time and continue communicating in that format all the time. So more transition available, yeah. So number 2, create external structure to build internal structure. Simple. So sleep rituals. Sleep is one of the major transition traumatized and maltreated children struggle with, or even as an adult now we struggle with. This transition will go more smoothly by creating a set of regulating and predictable bedtime rituals. This is your nighttime rituals. If you can have them, benefit you so much. This illustrates the importance of broader principle. If you create an external routine, ritual, or structure, the brain will respond over time by creating internal structure. The human brain has some very important and powerful system that creates anticipation of what should be coming next based upon what happened in similar situations in the past. So for many of our children, the chaos and unpredictability in their earlier lives, or even for yourself, if you had a lot of unpredictability as you're growing up, you create a false and inaccurate capacity for anticipation. You're not aware of it, you're not able to anticipate situations, you're not able to understand it very well. So, for example, a child's brain might anticipate physical assault if he hears a tiny rise in level of frustration in an adult's voice. In order to overcome these inaccurate anticipation and create new and healthier ones, we adults must provide lots of consistent, predictable interactions. Simple as that. So for sleep, creating routine is key. Screen time of at least 1 hour before bedtime, bath, pajamas if you have to. Put a little bit of quiet time, reading here a little bit, maybe reading, maybe even if your child likes to snuggle, snuggling is good. If for you as an adult, maybe just cozying up with your partner, or have a nice a nightly routine with your partner in order for you to get to understand the importance of it. And as you do it yourself, you'll be teaching your kids how to do the same format. Your discipline and your performance always gets inherited towards your kids. So just make sure everything you do is for the sake and good of your kid. So depending on the age of the child and the preference, there are many ways to create these rituals and routine. The key is to be consistent, predictable, nurturing, and regulating. Again, you can do that for yourself. You don't have to do it for your kids only, but this is just to let you know that if your kids are going through this, there's a high chance that you are the reason why they're doing this, if you're a parent. But if you're a foster and caregiver, of course, it's a different story. But it just shows you that a lot of things that we do tend to inherit and give to our kids. So if we don't have a right nightly routine, they won't have one either. Just similar situations. Number 3, walk and talk. When we move, especially when we move in a repetitive way, like walk, run, ride a bike, our body is sending regulatory feedback to stress response system in the brain. So this helps us stay regulated. We all have some patterned, repetitive, somatosensory activity that will calm us down when we get stirred up. Just in case you're wondering, somato means coming from the body, and sensory means coming from the 5 senses. Together, it just basically means input into the brain received from the body and the environment. The reason why we tell you to keep moving is just that regulatory process in your brain and your body, as they connect with one another, as you guys move and do activities and do actions together, it tends to create a harmony back in your brain. And this is why a lot of people tend to tell you to do these rhythmic behaviors or rhythmic actions, such as going to the gym, as I said before, running, walking, just to create a sense of movement in order for you to continue going forward towards a better and healthy way. So this some situations people ask you is to do some doodling, some coloring your pens, or something of an artistic form. If that helps, that helps. Going for a run, of course. Swimming is the best, because it tackles all your sensory, from the water, from the sound, from the touch, and so on. So it's really great. Sitting in the rocking chair, all of these activities provide a regulatory input. So one of the most useful ways to keep your child and you regulated is to just walk together. And this is one of the main cures as well for depression, to keep yourself moving. The neurotransmitters, or the chemicals in your brain when you're depressed, is very low, because there's not a lot of sensory from the environment and sensory from the outside. I know it's hard because you're depressed to go outside and really regulate yourself, but the more you constantly move and the more you go out and just do things in a small manner, but you do it regularly and repetitively, you start to create a better connection with your brains, and they get to fire with one another. So it makes it easier for the cortex, which is the top part here, to engage, basically. So emotionally charged topics will be easier to discuss, Constructive feedback will be easier to hear. Intimacy will be easier for the child to tolerate, or even for yourself to understand. Walk and talk is a great way to bond. Anyway, so it's a win-win. Number 4, regulate yourself before you try to regulate your child or your kids or your partner. This tip is going to be part of almost every one of our series, right? Humans are very social creatures. We are contagious to the emotions of others. If we are upset, frustrated, dysregulated, we will dysregulate those around us. I said before how our behaviors and our mindset and our actions tend to be very inheritable. We inherit and we give the cause to our kids, especially to our children. Our key is to stay regulated as much as possible. This speaks to the ongoing need for self-care. You can help regulate your dysregulated child only if you yourself stay regulated. Take the care of your needs. It's not being selfish. It's basically telling you if you take care of yourself, you'll be able to be better acquainted to take care of other people. Similar concept of the plane. Put the mask on your face first before you give it to your child. And so if you can take care of yourself as an adult, your children basically will be able to stay regulated as well. And that mindset itself will help you to deal with situations in the future. This is if yourself are going through trauma, or if your kids are going through trauma, or whatever the scenario is, you just have to make sure you lead by example. You deal with the situation. The moment you do, the kids will inherit that and adopt that mentality, and they make it their own. Cool. Now, number 5, proactive regulatory activities decrease, right, the need for reactive regulatory actions. This basically all means that if you stay ahead of the game in what situations or activities will do to you, then you can at least be proactive in the sense that you'll be able to anticipate those changes and those reactions, and therefore you'll be better equipped on how to deal with situations before they rise up and become something more horrific. Right? It may be this that you respond to being held or rocked, or you will seek solitude and some dissociating activities such as video games, reading to regulate, and all that stuff. It's something that you avoid the spotlight. In school, for example, with kids or yourself when you're growing up, it's common to remove a dysregulated child from a classroom and give them some space and one-on-one time with aid to the classroom, right? To calm down. The point is that we frequently use non-regulating activities in a reactive way. We give them the space, personal attention, and rhythmic sensory activities to calm them down, which means they already have escalated. We should have got them before they got to the stage. That's what we're trying to say. So there's nothing wrong with this. However, if we want to start to change their dysregulated baseline, also their inappropriate behaviors, even for yourself, we have to put in place a proactive and more frequent doses of those regulatory interactions. So instead of you waiting until you get to this stage before you start regulating yourself, maybe start it at a low stages for yourself first, of course, and as for your children. This is just to give you an image what your childhood would look like if you continue doing it there. So, for example, the day of school starts with 5 minutes of regulating activity, and there are scheduled, predictable, brief time during the day when your child, gets to have a one-on-one regulatory interactions. Just as maybe a 5-minute walk, maybe listen to music, maybe doing something rhythmic where they can feel a vibration and just comfortability with a trusted person, a trusted aid. It's likely that you'll avoid longer and more severe episode. Starting the after-school routine with a snack and 5-minute mutual hand massage will make it easier to slow down, regulate, reconnect, and then ask about the homework. Similar thing for you. As soon as you get back from work, you don't have to straight away get into the job or get into your household and do stuff. Some people now, and I like this and I recommend this highly, some people just sit in their cab for 5 minutes just to really regulate and prepare themselves for what today will look like. For example, if you know that you have to drop the kids somewhere, or you know that your partner's not feeling too well, so you have to do all the work and dinner, just prepare yourself that 5 minutes in the car and just think positively. Say, okay, I'm going to have to do this because this is what I want to do. I want to make sure that my kids do this, my partner gets this. I want to make sure that I be happy. I'm preparing myself. That 5 minutes, usually before work or even before you get home, it's really powerful for you to prepare yourself on what might come next. This way, you're proactive with your strategy rather than reactive. So number 6, you expect to see a wide variety in your child's functioning, or of course, again, your functioning. All of your brain-mediated capabilities, thinking, feeling, behaving, are influenced by our state. So how we're feeling the state. So this means that in one moment, you may be capable of sitting quietly, respectfully listening to respectfully listen to your partner or to your colleague or your boss, and 10 minutes later you start screaming, reacting, throwing tantrum in a way, even though of course you're an adult, it's hard. But yeah, you throw a tantrum, you start saying things that make no sense, things that you shouldn't be said, things that they make. And sometimes if you have really strong control, you won't be saying it out loud. Sometimes you just say it internally. You say it to yourself, you say it to things around you, saying, why is this person being silly? Why am I doing this? And then you start demonstrating that all across, not just at work, but you do that with your friends, you do that with your relationship, you do that even with your kids. It's just the inability that the labile, which is the emotional dysregulation, your labile is very emotional and behavioral functioning. It's a classic issue with people exposed to the developmental trauma. So people that go through trauma, they tend to behave and believe that they are confused in situations and they don't know how to react. It confuses your friends, your parents, your colleagues, your relationship. And so one moment that you would demonstrate compassion and thoughtfulness, the next behavior, you look antisocial and you become very cruel. Because in some moments, in some contexts, you demonstrate a healthy interaction and behaviors, and so other people believe that this is you behaving normally. In reality, you are just holding on to the craziness for as long as possible. So this mistake interpretation often leads to creation of what ineffective and even destructive effort to shape your behavior in the future. The truth is, these inconsistencies are a very predictable part of trauma-related changes in your brain, especially as you grow older, and if you get exposed to that trauma at a young age, you as a child, your brain, it doesn't comprehend and doesn't understand things the way normal people do. It's just that everything shapes and changes. Your brain doesn't go from a normal size, it actually shrinks because there's a lot of parts in the brain that doesn't develop fully because it's not exposed to the interaction in the environment to allow it to grow. So the inconsistency is related to the sensitization of the stress response system and the state dependence of the brain mediated capabilities, which means that because your brain is not fully developed, you jump from one scenario to the other without even understanding why you're doing it. And sometimes you can almost see yourself from an out-of-body experience, and you start noticing yourself doing these silly things and you cannot stop. I'm not saying to you it's okay, but I'm just saying to you it's normal. You gotta predict that and be anticipating to something that this will happen. It doesn't mean necessarily that you are a dysfunctional person. It just means your brain is not suitable and comfortable enough to stay regulated at all time. So I'm saying to you, predict the unpredictability, basically. So consistency and predictability at home and school will be helpful. As mentioned above, the brain has a very important anticipatory networks that will help us make sense of the world. The more the day is consistent and predictable, the less vigilant the brain needs to be, which means you don't have to keep yourself very active, looking around, trying to make sure everything is in check. You don't have to do that anymore. And the less vigilant and sensitized the brain is, the less likely that it will melt down. Try to develop some daily routines that can help you anchor your day. Consistency around meals, chores, predictability. Like I said to you, have your phone calendar very well structured, that you can not multitask in some situations, but you can do two things at the same time, so you basically never felt alone and have any disruption in your routine or your predictability of the day. I'm not saying to you that everything will run accordingly, but at least the more predictable that you have, the less chance for it to melt down. Now, it doesn't mean that it won't melt down at all. Some people, for example, while they're driving, they have conference calls or calls with their family and stuff, so they don't have to do it when they get home. Some people, while they're eating lunch, they tend to maybe listen to music or read or listen to a book. Just try to keep yourself body and action act. So you continue having everything set up for your day, starting it from as early as you wake up to as late as you finish, and do that daily. This way you will have predictability as your core foundation, which is exactly what you need. So if I figure out a way if your family can or yourself can develop a very predictable routine for your evening meals, if you're busy and all that stuff, then simple have rules of no phone, no screen time during meals or stuff like that, just so you can keep the distraction away from you. I'm talking about dinner. For lunch, of course, you can set up your own routine because you're going to be at work with your colleagues, but at home, have a very strong consistency and routine, so everybody on the same page, and share that knowledge and that routine with everyone around you. This way you'll be able to stay accountable and stay on top of your daily habits and routine. So number 8, use simple, calm, clear instructions for tasks at home and at work. So reinforce the visual and written reminders. And again, this might sound very elementary in the way it is, but we have to go back to teaching ourselves how to think and react from a childhood mentality, and then so we can graduate and gradually grow as an adult. And the problem is that even though physically we might be 30 or above, whatever it is, but our brain functioning will function as something at a lower age, especially if you're going through a horrific trauma. Because our brain functions in a lower age, we haven't really allowed it to develop chronologically in order for it to understand the surrounding and understand one, which is the reasoning, which is the best part of the brain, and as it continues, the emotional side, the physiological side of surviving mode. And because it needs to understand all the stuff, that's the only way for it to grow healthy. This is why I say to you, bring back the childhood mentality in order for it to let it grow into something better and bigger. And this way, the only way it will be able to understand how to deal with situations in a healthy, positive way. So that's the best way you can do it. That's why I'm saying to think and reinforce things as a child. This is the only way you can continue. Do not assume, right, that these processes or these actions might not be understood or might not work. Just repeat the directions and do them daily and frequently. This is the only way you're going to continue persisting and keeping things in your mind very accurate. So you can have a daily schedule on your phone, or you have a vision board or a vision where every single task and every situations are already lined up for you for the week, for the month, for the year, whatever it is. Keep your predictability online, but structure yourself and your activities, and then bring it back to a childhood mentality first and let it grow and mature itself to an adult form. That's the best way to continue doing that. Be patient with yourself and be prepared that things will go out of structure and things will not go as smoothly as you hope. Just be prepared for that because it's given. Because it's given, you are ready and prepared. So number 9, just think that not only for your children but for yourself, you can eventually shut down, right? Different evacuation cues can cause profound avoidance. So it's called false compliance and dissociation. It's common for a lot of people that has complex, pervasive histories of trauma to both sensitized dissociation and arousal responses. I know this concept a little bit hard to understand, but just bear with me, and I'll make sure that I keep it a little bit easier for you guys to understand. What I mean by different evacuative cues, for example, when you hear loud noises or somebody yelling at one another, or you see a similar signs of domestic violence, you tend to become and trigger your survival mode very rapidly. People call it as flashbacks. People call it as a hypervigilant tendencies, where you start becoming very aware of everything going on. And what happens to you, you become hyperactive, you become very impulsive, and you tend to show a lot of aggressive behaviors. You tend to become very, very restless, and you want to see, this is what evacuative cues are, and they tend to happen whenever you see something that might trigger old memories once again. So and some, you can either get that hyperactivity, hypervigilant, or you can get that dissociation. Dissociation is when you become distant. You want to distance yourself from everything, and you want to push yourself away from everybody. You just want to say, you know what, this is reacting too much. I don't want to become impulsive and angry. Instead, I just want to crawl up in the corner. I just want to shut down. Similar thing, if your partner's yelling at you, how come you haven't done this? Why haven't you done that? Then you start saying, yes, yes, honey, yes, 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 just so you can push away the spotlight away from you. And that's the only way you're going to continue and stay regulated throughout. Fair enough? Hope this makes sense. The result is but this results in confusion and complex behavior picture. So when you see it, it becomes more hostile, and it's either you become the perpetrator and you start causing trouble to your partner, and you're causing a little bit of domestic violence for her or for him, or you become the dissociative, where you become the victim on purpose, just so you can stay away from the spotlight and avoid complex situations. Remember that both of these response patterns can be addressed, and in all cases, a calm, patient, and confident approach by adults will help you stay regulated. And if you want to get more understanding of how to do this, I have another video that I've set up. It's called Coping with an Angry Partner. If you watch that, you see exactly how to deal with situations like these and really tackle it and understand it better. So now, final, number 10. If you use the reward and consequences, understand that immediate relational rewards are more effective than punitive consequences. So don't punish yourself for what happens, but instead have rewards and consequences. It's the best way for you to learn from what happened to you. Yelling at yourself and putting yourself down will only make situations worse, as your brain will understand that one thing, which is you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're stupid. So you're going to continue fighting yourself and push yourself down. Instead, have rewards and consequences for everything you do right. You have a reward. The rewards could be internal, by feeling good and feeling satisfied, like going to the gym. When you come back, you feel all this arousal, you feel good about yourself. Consequences say, okay, I didn't do this right, so the consequences, instead of me eating dessert for dinner, I'm not gonna eat anything, because that's the consequences of what happened. Don't think of it as a punitive or punishment, but think of it, you know what, I ate unhealthy takeaway today, so for dinner I'm not gonna eat unhealthy. That's the consequence, basically. Or I'm gonna spend 20 extra minutes running just so I make sure I burn out also. That's the consequence. The most common approach used in, like they started using that in school, but they use it also in good mental health for treatment of kids with traumatized kids or traumatized situations. That's what they do, which is the contingency model. Okay, it's basically working on both the level of reward and consequences. These approaches are effective for some basic behavior changes, with for you, for yourself, for your children, and of course for your future as well. This helps you to stay regulated. So what that means is that these approaches, when they escalate and they further dysregulate yourself and you become sensitized around, you get sensitized, it increases the rate of critical incidences, such as aggression, of course, and you run away, or you do something very hostile, and you tend to react with and cause a lot of regret in your life. And of course, there's more extreme situations, such as, you know, start doing troubles, start doing drugs and alcohol, start causing doing things more recklessly, and you do that on purpose just so you can start to feel good about yourself. So time and attention is the best reward you can ever give. So every time you're feeling dysregulated or things that cause you into anger, get more attention from people, but don't do it in an inappropriate way. But seek out help and ask for situations. That's where you can get the right attention. And saying it rather than doing it is better. It's a better form. By asking for help, people can actually be there and give you more time on it and attend to your needs, and start learning how to communicate appropriately when situations like that happens again to you in the future. Finding time to be present, and to be patient when these situations happen to you in the future. And the only way you could do this is really staying aware of where you are now. Stay regulated to your emotions, and you start feeling hypervigilant. Start realizing this is the cue that's gonna cause me to regulate and get aggressive all over again. I need to start understanding my signs now in order for me to get the help that I want. Talk to somebody that I want. If you have a partner, that's great. Talk to them about it. And before you get to that stage, and say, okay, when I'm in this level, I need you to talk to me and do this. But when I'm in this level, I need you just to leave me alone so I can maybe meditate, calm myself down, listen to music, reduce my anger down. But you have to understand where your body is, understand your cues, and that's the only way somebody else will be able to help you and give you the appropriate support that you do need. And all of us need it. It's not just you. We all go through it. You don't have to go through intense traumatized situation in order for you to get any of these signs or these help that you need. Anybody that just had one incident that caused something of a long-term effect gives you that sense of reactability, and because of that, you have to understand your body cues, understand what you need to do in order for you to stay safe throughout, right? So this is basically how to continue and maintain yourself at all time. Thank you so much, you guys, for listening. I'm hoping you take some of the notes here and understanding it. Of course, rewind yourself back, and if you want to understand and learn more about what just happened and how to understand your body cues. I am Jay Abraham, the founder of Metanoia Academy, and help you have a healthy lifestyle for yourself, for your kids, and for your future. Really understanding where you belong and why these traumas are really going to continue haunting you for life. You have to understand your cues, understand your anxiety level, understand what scenarios you put yourself into. It's just because of what subconsciously you've been doing back in the days with yourself. Your brain is not fully functional. You have to really graduate it and move it back into adult phase again. And that's the only way you're going to continue learning and continue understanding your own cues. Don't self-sabotage. Instead, be assertive and understand how to deal with situations. Thank you so much, you guys, and have a great day.